Okay, can you tell me your name and what court you're running for?
Louis Stefanos, Tarrant County Probate Court number 1.
And why are you running for that office?
I'm running for Tarrant County Probate Court number 1 because as I started out as the staff attorney for Judge King in 2011, I really got to have a good feel of what the probate court does, not from just a court standpoint, but also from a human standpoint, helping people. I take pride in my job. I like to go to work every day. I love to work on situations that are very unique, and the probate court is very unique in terms of general law as a whole. I enjoy working with individuals who can't take care of themselves necessarily, kind of protecting people that don't have a voice. I like to be the voice for them. I like to represent people that are the voice for their family members. I just love my job, plain and simple. That's why I'm running for Tarrant County Probate Court number 1.
And can you briefly describe your qualifications for the office?
I started off in 2011 as the staff attorney for Judge King. I managed the contested database, and that basically, as an example of what I did on a daily basis, is all of our contested hearings would be through Tuesday and Friday throughout the week. So for instance, we had a motion hearing on Tuesday morning. On Monday night or Monday during the day, I would go over all the pleadings that the attorneys filed, summarize them and provide them to the judge that evening as we met in his chambers and discussed the case. From that standpoint, I worked there for 2 years. I got to see a lot of litigation. That's basically all I saw was litigation. I didn't participate in the uncontested cases. After that, from 2013, I worked for Shannon Gracie Ratliff and Miller in their estate planning, probate, and trust section. I got an immense amount of experience on the ad litem will, serving as guardian ad litem, attorney ad litem. I also served as attorney ad litem in emergency protective order cases where someone was either neglecting themselves or being neglected by a family member, and that actually resulted in me being a frequent speaker for the Texas Department of Health and Human Services to the new caseworkers. I've been appointed by judges in 4 different counties to serve as dependent administrator for estates where there was no family member willing to step up and be appointed. Both courts in Probate Court 1 and Probate Court 2 appointed me, Dallas County, Collin County, and down in Aransas County. After Shannon Gracie Ratliff and Miller, I continued my practice in estate planning, probate, and guardianship at Pope Hardwick, where I currently work.
Okay. What do you believe the proper role of government is?
I believe government is, from a judicial standpoint.
It's just an open-ended, your own beliefs.
From a judicial standpoint, I think the purpose of a judge is to allow people to have their cases heard, and that's really important to me because I believe an open court should be open. From talking to people in the community, they've been telling me, attorneys and client and individuals in the communities that aren't attorneys have been telling me that they just wish the courts were more open. They wish that everybody would be treated fairly and have their point of view heard. That's what I'm going to come with as the judge. I really truly believe that no matter what case you file, from a probate to a guardianship to a mental health case, that person's entitled to their day in court, whether they're a pro se, whether they're represented by the best attorney in the county, or whether they're represented by someone that's coming out fresh out of law school. So I believe the purpose of the court and the judge is to allow people to have their voices heard, have their cases ruled on fairly and without bias.
When and for what reason should state or local government be allowed to seize private property under eminent domain?
I think that necessarily applies to probate courts, so I don't have any professional comments on that as it relates to me as for probate court number 1.
Do you have any personal comments on that?
As a judicial candidate, I don't.
Okay. Is Texas in need of civil asset forfeiture reform?
Again, as a probate judge, I don't necessarily think that applies to what I'm running as a candidate. In another setting, I'd be happy to answer your question, but we have 15 minutes, guys, and I think I'd like to focus on probate.
I'm probably going to focus on the questions that I have in front of me. But what is your position on marriage rights?
On marriage rights?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a man and a woman should be allowed to get married. That's my position on marriage rights.
What are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
Top 3 issues of my campaign are education of the public as to what actually a probate and guardianship court does. On the campaign trail, I've learned pretty quickly that not many people understand what we do, from talking out to people in the community, Maybe 1 out of every 10 people that I knock on their door and talk to actually know what a probate court is. So I think education is really, really important. So in case, there hasn't been an election in this probate court since 1994. So I think that's a problem as to why nobody knows what's going on, because there's just a lot of education going on. So I'd like to focus on education. I'd like to focus on an open court system. Guardianship law has changed a lot with less restrictive alternatives, and I believe that that's leading some people to be a little hesitant to file cases in probate court, or because of how the judge might view the case, and I just don't think that's necessarily appropriate. I think people, if they're getting the advice of an attorney, should be allowed to file their case without fear that their case is going to be denied prior to trial. Another thing I'd like to do is I'd like to help out younger attorneys in the probate courts. I was a young attorney once, although I think I'm still pretty young. I consider myself a veteran probate attorney because I've done a lot of stuff. So I'd like to get them involved and start a pro se policy or a pro se will, so you can come in, and a pro bono will, so where young attorneys can come in and serve as ad litem on cases, and they don't necessarily get paid by the county or out of the coffers of the proposed guardian, and that gets them into court. And a lot of us veteran attorneys aren't going to want to take that, which I think is going to help get young attorneys. I'm real concerned with, we have a lot of really good probate and guardianship attorneys from the ages of probably 28, 29 up until their 60s, but I just don't think there's a new breed or crop that I'm seeing coming up. So I'd really like to encourage attorneys to get involved in the probate court. It's a really good area to be of service to your community, because I don't do this for the money. Our fees are capped. And we do it because we like to protect the people.
Okay. What do you believe are the top 3 things that make you more qualified than your opponents?
I believe my temperament is better than any of the other candidates. I don't have an agenda. I get along with everybody. I approach cases from a very different standpoint than I think a lot of attorneys do. I approach it from, let's solve the problem for the client, let's save the client money, let's save the estate money, and let's save the ward money. And then, we take it in stride after that. I know it's sometimes a little frustrating to clients and other attorneys that if you take that approach, kind of a slow go, but I had a lady come in the other day and she thought we needed to go into court and file a temporary administration, and after 2 hours we determined that we just needed to talk to a corporate attorney and get a few documents passed over to the bank, and that was it. So we went from an escalated situation to a de-escalated situation fairly quickly. I don't know if I completely answered. You said 3 things, but as I was talking,
If there's more you want to say,
Can you repeat the question?
What are the top 3 things that make you more qualified than your opponent?
Okay. Also, I think my time at the court was invaluable. Getting to spend 2 hours, an hour a day with a judge, talking about all the contested cases in front of him. I sat in a lot of evidentiary hearings. I sat in trials. Of course, the probate court rarely has jury trials, at least for court 1, so I didn't really get to see that too much. But I think working with a judge on a day in, day out basis is just invaluable experience, and allows me to go out and to serve my clients well, knowing how the court might interpret cases, knowing how the law is applied in certain situations, and being real creative. I like to be creative with our cases, and with the sense of less restrictive alternatives, I think you can really save people a lot of money, the taxpayers a lot of money, and the clients a lot of money.
Okay. Please describe your political experience as well as experience as an election volunteer, staffer, candidate, or office holder, being sure to include the names of any candidates or office holders for whom you've worked or volunteered.
I've not been a staffer. I've not run for office. In law school, I was the treasurer and the president of the Florida Coastal Republican Club. From that standpoint on, I haven't been extremely involved in local politics. I regularly vote as a conservative Republican. I've spent a lot of my early career getting involved at the city level. I serve on the Zoning Board of Adjustment for the city of Mansfield. I've gone through Leadership Mansfield. I just rolled off of the Mansfield Chamber Board, and then through that I was the liaison for the Southeast Tarrant Transportation Partnership, which governs a little bit of transportation issues in Southeast Tarrant County. So I've attacked it more on a city level in terms of getting my name out and getting involved, and now I'm going towards the political realm.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, what will you do to improve the lives, families, and communities of those that enter court?
I'm from a very blended family. I'm an only child of my parents. My parents are divorced. I have an adopted stepsister. I have a stepbrother. I have multiple step siblings. I think I understand what diverse families are all about. My goal as judge is to repair any relationships that have been fractured. I think that's my job as an attorney as well, to try to coach the clients to, make the repair, find the middle ground, and figure out what's going on, because I'm not in it. Worst case scenario is the attorney ends up with all the estate money and the ward's money, and I don't think that's very fair to the family nor the person that's using, especially in a guardianship, the family members are allowed to use the ward's money to fight their battles. So I think I'm going to reach out with an approach of let's reach a middle ground. Going to trial, litigating the matter, being in court every other week is not good for anybody. It's not good for the family. It's not good for the elderly person, and it's not good for anybody that's susceptible to the court. So I'm going to encourage settlement. I'm going to encourage people. Everybody come to the hearing. Don't just send your attorneys. Be part of the process.
Okay. Also, drugs and alcohol are a large part of this court. How do you plan to approach and evaluate these very difficult situations?
Okay. Yes, I've represented someone who actually was in a drug-induced dementia from taking too much cocaine. He was one of my first clients right when I got out of working for the court, and it was a really eye-opening experience because he was in his 70s. He had got a pretty good check from the government for some unpaid government benefits, and he used a predominantly amount of it on cocaine and I guess you say hookers, so to speak. So I met him, I talked to him about his situation. He understood what he had done wrong. I guided him through the process. The Department of Aging and Disability Services filed a guardianship against him. I fought that. I asked for an independent medical exam because I thought maybe his issue wasn't so much dementia, it was just he was in a drug-induced state of dementia. We actually got a favorable report, and the first doctor who filed this CME against him, I actually did a little bit of investigation, and he wasn't there on the day that he said he was to talk to my client, so he's actually been reprimanded by the state. I take it very seriously. I represent a proper professional guardian, and we have an individual who's in his early 50s who has Weakman's encephalopathy from basically drinking alcohol. He would drink boxed wine from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. No water, no milk, no sodas, nothing in between. We got him into rehab, which people said there's no way it's going to work, and he's been alcohol-free now for a couple of years. So I've seen it, I've experienced it. I think it's very serious, and I'm seeing it more often the more I practice. We had another similar case, but the court disagreed with our position on whether she needed protection or not. So.
And how do you feel about utilizing faith-based recovery programs in addition to the other services?
I think church is important. I think finding the right churches that understand that people do have some issues. I go to St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church in Arlington. We volunteer through the church. I'm on my kids' advisory council. I think it's extremely important all my kids go to Catholic school. Faith-based practices are important. We have Alzheimer's groups that meet at our church. I just think it's important. I think, once you have a faith in God and a trust in Him, then that things will take care of itself.
Okay.
That's all I have.
About a minute and a half.
Is there anything you want to tell the voters?
Yeah, I just want to tell them, I think I'm going to bring a unique, different approach to the bench. I've seen a lot in my years, few years, so to speak, working as an attorney, but I've seen a lot of life-changing things, life-altering things. I've worked on cases where special needs individuals were kidnapped. I've worked on cases where special needs individuals were beaten by their caregivers, by their foster care providers who turned out to be their parents. And that's something that changes you. It changes your perspective about life. And I always tell people, if you feel bad about yourself, just come to my office for half a day and I'll show you 3 or 4 files that make you feel a little bit better about your situation. Those are the things that I'm compassionate about. I love what I do. I love my job. I will take the judicial spot very seriously. This is not a stepping stone to me. I don't necessarily want to be on the Court of Appeals. I don't practice in the district court. So this is where I want to be. This is where I want to make the best impact, and this is where I feel I can serve you. Thank you.
And do you have a website?
Yes, www.lewisstefanos.com.
Awesome.